When you look at a modern medicine, picture the science inside as something alive, a matrix of active molecules constantly interacting and adapting. But the regulatory framework governing that medicine doesn't work that way. Once a drug passes the FDA approval process, its scientific baseline is effectively frozen in time. This creates a harsh gap between the physical chemistry on the manufacturing floor and the rigid checkboxes on the compliance paperwork. It's a disconnect called ontological fragmentation. This occurs when static rules fail to capture the fluid reality of producing complex drugs at scale. The result is a quality system engineered to defend a legal definition of sameness, rather than tracking the actual physical truth of how a medicine behaves in the real world. If you have a massive, fragmented gap between factory data and regulatory paperwork, artificial intelligence seems like the perfect bridge to instantly connect those scattered points. But there is a massive, unavoidable liability. Left to their own devices, large language models hallucinate. When they don't know an answer, they simply invent one that sounds plausible. You can see how this unreliability happens when OpenAI models train on the open internet. They pull from a chaotic mix of Wikipedia edits, opinion pieces, and Reddit threads to build their reasoning. You cannot put a system trained on internet forums in charge of an automated manufacturing line. Releasing a commercial batch of pharmaceuticals requires absolute certainty. If a chatbot decides to approve a batch of life-saving therapeutics based on a hallucinated quality metric, the physical risk to patients is severe. The industry is caught in a tough spot. On one side, a static regulatory system that struggles to adapt to physical reality. On the other, a dynamic technology that has a habit of making reality up. To safely ease AI in a regulated space, engineers build closed-weight, on-premise models. These are highly restricted local networks, entirely severed from the open internet. They then control exactly what the model learns by using retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. RAG is a technique that forces the AI to only pull answers from a specific, pre-approved database. This logic flow shows the AI node hardwired to query only a disconnected vault. Inside are verified legal frameworks like FDA regulations, alongside the factory's ground truth, operating procedures, deviation reports, and manufacturing logs. If it isn't here, the AI cannot speak. Before it goes live, this entire architecture is tested against computer software assurance standards. CSA is an FDA-supported framework that focuses testing on the highest risk functions to prove the software works exactly as intended. Through this intense restriction in testing, the technology stops acting like a creative conversation partner and becomes a highly reliable, faithful domain expert. By locking the AI inward inside a rigorously validated box, its outputs become legally, functionally, and scientifically trustworthy. Once you have a trusted model, you can deploy it to actively hunt for errors using a process known as forced contradiction retrieval. FCR is an AI design mechanism that actively searches for discrepancies between established rules and new real-world data. Most compliance systems are built to confirm that paperwork matches expectations. FCR does the opposite. It operates as an antithesis pathway, scanning thousands of records specifically to find semantic friction, the moments where old regulatory assumptions clash with new manufacturing realities. If a seemingly validated drug starts failing quality checks, the system cross-references the failures to expose the true mechanistic root cause, bypassing superficial excuses. Instead of filing anomalies away in a cabinet, this system uses them as the engine to force updates to the industry's scientific baseline. This strict contradiction hunting framework completely overhauls the corrective and preventative action process, or CAPA. CAPA is the formal procedure pharmaceutical companies use to investigate and fix manufacturing deviations. Historically, this has been a backward-looking chore, a race to fill out documentation after something has already gone wrong. This timeline projection shows how the process becomes a forward-looking synthesis engine. It analyzes early friction points to predict and prevent failures before they ever reach the patient. Early attempts at AI in pharma just tried to write those compliance reports a little faster. This approach actually uses the technology to diagnose the physical process itself. It is an exercise in epistemic humility. It's a built-in acknowledgement that our initial scientific assumptions at the time of FDA approval are incomplete and require constant updating. But dropping new software onto a server won't sustain this shift on its own. The industry has to completely rewire how it governs itself to support it. To make this dynamic, life-saving system function, the field requires a new epistemic contract. The first two pillars are the regulators, who provide the legal framework, and the industry, which supplies the engineering reality of the factory floor. The final two pillars are academia, providing neutral infrastructure, and patients, whose real-world outcomes provide the absolute truth of whether a medicine works. By linking these four together, pharmaceutical quality finally stops waiting for the next crisis and begins adapting at the speed of insight.